This morning, I want to point out something that I think most rabbis already knew, but every congregant in the world is going to figure out at some point over the week, which is that, give it one more second. So something that is dawning on a lot of people this week is that this week's Torah portion includes two mentions of the word Hamas. And so the question that anyone would immediately ask is like, how did God know? Was someone reading the schedule? What is this word doing in the Torah to begin with? Like, what is the word of a modern Palestinian terrorist group doing in the Bible? And the answer is that in Arabic, Hamas is actually an acronym for Haraka al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, which is, my Arabic isn't great, but is basically the equivalent of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the idea that it is the literally mean the Islamic resistance movement might actually be a better translation. It is an offshoot of a group called the Muslim Brotherhood, but it is an acronym, Hamas, you put them together. Although it may actually be what we call in linguistics a backronym, because in Arabic, Hamas can mean strength. So what is this word doing in our Torah portion? Stick with me for the next 11 minutes and we'll find out. So let me show it to you first of all, right in the Torah. So in Genesis 6:11, when God is getting ready to destroy the earth because of the flood, V'tishacheta aretz lifnei Elohim, the earth became corrupt before God. V'timhalei haaretz Hamas, the earth was filled with, and it is often translated as lawlessness. Rashi calls it robbery. Ibn Ezra, who is more subtle with the linguistics, says that Hamas stands for theft, oppression, and taking women against their will. So this is in fact what the modern Hamas stands for itself, but this is actually a very ancient word. It appears in its various forms something like 67 times in the Bible, and by seeing it in different contexts, you appreciate the subtlety of its meaning. So here, what we can tell from context is Hamas is something bad. The commentators give us a spin. Genesis 6:13, God says to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all flesh. The earth is filled with lawlessness, Hamas, mipneihem, because of them. I'm about to destroy them along with the earth. So if you look elsewhere in the Bible, you see other quotes that you get a sense by seeing how it's used. So Amos, when he is criticizing his own people, he says, V'lo yadu la'asot nochacha, they don't know how to do right, declares God. Ha'otzrim Hamas, they store up Hamas, the shod. Shod is booty or loot or pillaging. So Hamas here and their fortresses. So Hamas is sort of the gain from violence. It's not just violence, but it is actually the benefit that one receives from violence. Or here, Al tikneni benefesh tsarai, do not subject me to the will of my foes. This is the psalm that we say every day during the season of penitence, Psalm 27. Do not subject me to the will of my foes, for false witnesses, vifeach Hamas, unjust accusers is how it's translated here. But a pach can be a trap or a snare or a speaker. So it's either a trap of wrongdoing or a speaker of wrongdoing. But the idea is, why does someone testify falsely? For ill-gotten gain. So it's not just any kind of violence. It is violence with the intent of theft or plunder, perhaps. So another example you see of this is in Genesis 49. So Simon and Levi, when Dinah is kidnapped, Simon and Levi have a ruse. They ask the people of Shem to all be circumcised, and then they go in and they slaughter all of them and take all of their stuff. And when Jacob, on his deathbed, criticizes them for this, he says, Shimon and Levi are brothers, they are a pair. Their weapons are tools of Hamas, lawlessness. So again, it's violence, but it's violence with the intent to plunder and pillage. So you have repeatedly this idea that it is violence, it is harm, it is lawlessness, but in particular associated with pillage, with plunder, or with ill-gotten gain. And so this is a word that you see repeatedly. I just want to point out, as we're looking at some of these examples, when we look at this verse from Genesis 49:5, that Shimon and Levi are engaged in this attack in order to rescue their sister who is taken captive. So it is Hamas in pursuit of Hamas, if you will. So the people of Shem commit Hamas first by raping and taking Dinah, and then Shimon and Levi respond fighting fire with fire. But then we see Rashi kind of takes his own spin on this. The business of murdering is Hamas, not rightly theirs. That in fact, it is not just that you are committing Hamas by what you rape and by what you steal, but in fact, you are stealing a move from Esau. It is the way of Esau to rape and pillage. It is not our way, right? It is one thing to defend, it is another thing to rape and pillage. So Shimon and Levi, what you did there is wrong, because you are in essence, you're taking the move or the way of doing things of another nation. I'll give you two last biblical sources for Hamas, and then we'll put this all together. In the book of Jonah, so Jonah and Noah often play off each other. Noah and Jonah are the two Jews who go on boats. And there's a lot of parallels there. But in the book of Jonah, when he gets to Nineveh, the people of Nineveh actually repent. V'kasu sakim ha'adam ba'bema, and they call themselves, covers with sackcloth, human and animal. They cry mightily to God. Let everyone turn back from their evil ways. Min hachamas asher b'chapehem, from the evil doing, that is literally in their hands. And so Rav Ami explains, what does it mean, Hamas, that is in their hands? That it is, Hamas is literally ill-gotten gain, injustice in their hands, means that it comes from violence, that they've committed harm with their hands. But the verse also states the violence that is in their hands. And so Shmuel says the king of Nineveh proclaimed, even if you stole a beam and put it into your building, you have to tear down the entire building and return the beam to its owner. So normally in Jewish law, let's say that you have taken something wrongly and you have done something with it. You don't have to, like, you've stolen a beam. You don't have to take down the whole building the beam is in. You just have to offer financial compensation, because otherwise tearing down the building is much more than the cost of what it is. But Shmuel says in this case, in the case of Hamas, no, you actually have to take down the whole building. You can't just take down the beam. So if you want to extrapolate this out, right, that you can't just take back that which is stolen. There's actually greater destruction that has to happen in order to make this thing right. That they have to remove every aspect of violence from their possession. One final connection, and this is in Genesis 16:4-5. So this is actually the story of the birth of Yishmael. So Genesis 16, Abraham, this is the first example of surrogate motherhood, but it happens by natural, not artificial insemination. Abraham cohabits with Hagar. She conceives. She saw that she had conceived and her mistress was lowered in her esteem. So Hagar has a negative feeling towards Sarah because she is pregnant with Ishmael. And Sarai says to Abraham, Chamasi alecha. Hamas, the violence that has been done to me is your fault. So Hagar is causing Hamas on me, and Abraham, it is your fault. So my friends, I'd like to point out, so Yishmael is the product of this Hamas, and Abraham is the father of Yishmael, who is the ancestor of the Arab peoples, and Sarah, and so Hagar is the ancestor of Yishmael, the ancestor of the Arab peoples, and Sarah is the ancestor, the mother of Isaac, the mother of the Jewish people. Abraham is the father of both. And so Sarah says, Abraham, what have you done? You have set loose Hamas on me. The violence, the harm that is done to me is your fault, Abraham. And so Rashi actually says, the wrong done to me, Hamasi, I call down upon you. You deprive me, chomes, that you have taken away from me. So this is remarkable when you go through these texts, and I promise there's going to be a lot of sermons on this Shabbat. So now you know that Hamas, which is the term for this Muslim terrorist group, it literally is an acronym in Arabic for resistance, but maybe a backronym because Hamas in Hebrew means strength, at least potentially. But in Hebrew, it means violence, or in particularly theft through violence, or even pillage or plunder. And we see it used in that example over and over again to describe damage done to Jews, and even to describe damage or harm done by Jews against their enemies. It's often Hamas is harm against the innocent in particular. I wanted to point out to you that in Jonah, Hamas b'kapehem, there's this concept of in order to undo violence, you sometimes have to give back even more. That sometimes you can't just take out the beam, sometimes you have to knock down the whole building. And I want to point out that Hamas, the very first interaction where we are talking about the birth of Yishmael, Hamas is mentioned. So Sarah, mother of Isaac, says to Abraham, by having Ishmael, you are putting Hamas on me. So in case anyone is wondering if the Bible continues to have lessons for us in every generation, well, you judge for yourself. But this week we read about the concept of Hamas in the story of Noah and the earth being filled with Hamas. And we see that could not have been any clearer that sometimes the Torah anticipates events that we ourselves are living through, experiences that we ourselves have. Let me wish everyone a week of peace, praying for the safety of those who are going to defend Israel, praying for the safe return of Israel's captives, praying for the healing of those who are wounded and comfort for those who mourn, and praying for the safety of all who are innocent and for the destruction of the guilty. God bless everyone and a good week.
Thank you.